When I heard you play this afternoon, I thought I never heard such a touch, such technique. A treat for me to hear a virtuoso. So I crept up to your door now, humbly as a little dog might, madame, and put my ear to the keyhole and listened until my stick fell to the floor through a momentary clumsiness of mine, and I was discovered. He had the most touchingly ingenuous smile. Perfectly in tune, I repeated. To my surprise, now I had said it, I found I could not say anything else. I could only repeat, in tune, perfect, in tune, over and over again. I saw a dawning surprise in his face. My head throbbed. To see him in his lovely blind humanity seemed to hurt me very piercingly. Somewhere inside my breast, his figure blurred, the room swayed about me. After the dreadful revelation of that bloody chamber, it was his tender look that made me faint. When I recovered consciousness, I found I was lying in the piano tuner's arms, and he was tucking the satin cushion from the piano stool under my head. "You are in some great distress," he said. "No bride should suffer so much, so early in her marriage." His speech had the rhythms of the countryside, the rhythms of the tides. "Any bride brought to this castle should come ready dressed in mourning, should bring a priest and a coffin with her," I said. "What's this?" It was too late to keep silent, and if he, too, were one of my husband's creatures, then at least he had been kind to me. So I told him everything, the keys, the interdiction, my disobedience, the room, the rack, the skull, the corpses, the blood. "I can scarcely believe it," he said, wondering. "That man, so rich, so well born." "Here's proof," I said, and tumbled the fatal key out of my handkerchief onto the silken rug. "Oh God," he said, "I can smell the blood." He took my hand, he pressed his arms around me. Although he was scarcely more than a boy, I felt a great strength flow into me from his touch. "We whisper all manner of strange tales up and down the coast," he said. "There was a marquise once who used to hunt young girls on the mainland. He hunted them with dogs, as though they were foxes. My grandfather had it from his grandfather, how the marquise pulled a head out of his saddle-bag and showed it to the blacksmith while the man was shoeing his horse. A fine specimen of the genus brunette, eh, Guillaume? And it was the head of the blacksmith's wife. But in these more democratic times my husband must travel as far as Paris to do his hunting in the saloons. Jean-Yves knew the moment I shuddered. Oh, madame, I thought all these were old wives' tales, chattering of fools, spooks to scare bad children into good behavior. Yet how could you know, a stranger, that the old name for this place is the Castle of Murder? How could I know, indeed, except that in my heart I'd always known its lord would be the death of me? "Hark," said my friend suddenly, "the sea has changed key. It must be near morning, the tide is going down." He helped me up. I looked from the window towards the mainland, along the causeway, where the stones gleamed wetly in the thin light of the end of the night, and with an almost unimaginable horror, a horror of the intensity of which I cannot transmit to you, I saw in the distance, still far away yet drawing moment by moment inexorably nearer, the twin headlamps of his great black car, gouging tunnels through the shifting mist. My husband had indeed returned. This time it was no fancy. "The key," said Jean-Yves. "It must go back on the ring with the others, as though nothing had happened." But the key was still caked with wet blood, and I ran to my bathroom and held it under the hot tap. Crimson water swirled down the basin, but as if the key itself were hurt, the bloody token stuck. The turquoise eyes of the dolphin taps winked at me derisively. They knew my husband had been too clever for me. I scrubbed the stain with my nail brush, but still it would not budge. I thought how the car would be rolling silently towards the closed courtyard gate. The more I scrubbed the key, the more vivid grew the stain. The bell in the gatehouse would jangle. The porter's drowsy son would push back the patchwork quilt, yawning, pull the shirt over his head, thrust his feet into the sabots. Slowly, slowly, open the door for your master, as slowly as you can. And still the bloodstain mocked the fresh water that spilled from the mouth of the leering dolphin. You have no more time, said Jean-Yves. He is here. I know it. I must stay with you. You shall not, I said. Go back to your room now, please. He hesitated. I put an edge of steel in my voice, for I knew I must meet my lord alone. Leave me. As soon as he had gone, I dealt with the keys and went to my bedroom. The causeway was empty. Jean-Yves was correct. My husband had already entered the castle. I pulled the curtains close, stripped off my clothes and pulled the bed curtain round me as a pungent aroma of Russian leather assured me my husband was once again beside me. Dearest, with the most treacherous, lascivious tenderness he kissed my eyes, and mimicking the new bride newly wakened, I flung my arms around him, for on seeing my seeming acquiescence depended on my salvation. Da Silva of Rio outwitted me, he said wryly. My New York agent telegraphed Le Havre and saved me a wasted journey. So we may resume our interrupted pleasures, my love. I did not believe one word of it. I knew I had behaved exactly according to his desires. Had he not brought me so that I should do so? I had been trickled into my own betrayal to that illimitable darkness whose source I had been compelled to seek in his absence, and, now that I had met that shadowed reality of his that came to life only in the presence of its own atrocities, I must pay the price of my new knowledge. The secret of Pandora's box, but he had given me the box himself, knowing I must learn the secret. I had played a game in which every move was governed by a destiny as oppressive and omnipotent as himself, since that destiny was himself, and I had lost. Lost at that charade of innocence and vice in which he had engaged me, lost as the victim loses to the executioner. His hand brushed my breast beneath the sheet. I strained my nerves, yet could not help but flinch from the intimate touch, for it made me think of the piercing embrace of the Iron Maiden and of his lost lovers in the vault. When he saw my reluctance, his eyes veiled over, and yet his appetite did not diminish. His tongue ran over red lips already wet. Silent, mysterious, he moved away from me to draw off his jacket. He took the gold watch from his waistcoat and laid it on the dressing-table, like a good bourgeois, scooped out his rattling loose change, and now, oh God, makes a great play of patting his pockets officiously. Puzzled lips pursed, searching for something that has been mislaid, then turns to me with a ghastly, triumphant smile. But of course, I gave the keys to you. Your keys? Why, of course. Here, they're under the pillow. Wait a moment. What? Ah! No, now, where can I have left them? I was whiling away the evening without you at the piano, I remember. Of course, the music room. Brusquely he flung my negligee of antique lace on the bed. Go and get them. Now, this moment. Can't it wait until morning, my darling? I forced myself to be seductive. I saw myself pale, pliant as a plant that begs to be trampled underfoot, a dozen vulnerable, appealing girls, reflected in as many mirrors, and I saw how he almost failed to resist me. If he had come to me in bed, I would have strangled him then. But he half snarled, No, it won't wait. Now. The unearthly light of dawn filled the room. Had only one previous dawn broken upon me in that vile place, and there was nothing for it but to go and fetch the keys from the music-stool, and pray he would not examine them too closely, pray to God his eyes would fail him, that he might be struck blind. But when I came into the bedroom carrying the bunch of keys that jangled at every step like a curious musical instrument, he was sitting on the bed in his immaculate shirt-sleeves, his head sunk in his hands, and it seemed to me he was in despair.